5, 4, 3,
3, 2, 1.
Oh, great. That was the most high energy sync I've ever had.
Yeah, I gotta make it choppy.
What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to this special interview episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a 31-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid. I read them as an adult because I was on a quest to determine if society had been sleeping on the book series. I said yes, and then I started covering all of the other Percy Jackson accoutrements, one of which included the Lightning Thief musical, and I'm here today with none other than Percy Jackson from the Off-Broadway revival, the U.S. tour, the Broadway run. It's Chris McCarrell. Chris, how's it going?
Hey, good to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you as well. Our original meeting was, I think, like 2 years ago when someone tagged you in a tweet in reply to mine, like, hey, whenever you get to the Percy Jackson Lightning Thief musical, you should have Chris on the pod. And then you were like, yeah, that sounds like a fun time. And then I DM'd like, hi, are you free in 2 years when I get to it?
I'm like, if I make it that long, yes, I'm all yours. And here we are.
Here we are. I'm very excited to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So I want to take it back just to the very beginning because I'm not exactly sure of the whole timeline of all of this because I didn't start reading the books for my podcast until 2021. So I had always heard positive things about the play, but I didn't really know the full story of it. As far as you getting cast in it, obviously you had Broadway experience beforehand, but what was the process for you getting to become Percy Jackson in the Lightning Thief musical?
I just got this email from my agents, which is just kind of the normal thing. You just get auditions. It's like, hey, in 2 days, you are going in to meet the team behind the Lightning Thief musical Off-Broadway. And I didn't know anything about the books. And TheaterWorks USA was the main producer behind it. And they're known for like bus and truck school tours. So I remember there was like a thing in the email that was like, don't worry, you won't have to build the set. And I had just like come off a Broadway gig. So I was like, what the heck is this? And then I Googled like the creative team and I listened to the music and I'm like, no, this is cooking with gas. This is cool. I can't wait to go in for it. And so I went in, I auditioned. They told me later I was the last person they saw in like the callbacks. So I was like the last person to walk into the room for Percy. They asked me to stay for a fight call, which was mostly me getting slapped and hit and pushed to the floor. I don't think I like threw one punch the whole time. And then on the way home, they told me I got it.
That's so cool.
Which is insane. That's not like the normal. You usually don't go from meeting a creative team to 4 hours later getting the part. It's usually like a whole process. So it was very quick and it just kind of like fit like a glove. It was one of those really special scripts and scores.
That's awesome. Did you then, after getting cast, decide to dive in to the series at all, whether that was reading the books or watching the interesting films that were already out at that time?
I did a little. I'm always very protective. So I read the first book and I was like, oh my God, how he talked, how his brain worked. I was like, this is going to be so much freaking fun. Because I'm so used to like editing myself so hard, especially coming straight from like Marius, where he was like a poet in the 1800s. I'm like, oh my God, I can just be whatever naturally flows through my DNA. So I was so excited when I read the book just to like hear the tone of it and like really get a sense of kind of how off the cuff and like so freaking unserious. Because I grew up on like Harry Potter, which is so kind of serious.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's my podcast before this Percy Jackson one was a Harry Potter one. And, you know, the books are still funny, but all of these teenage people sound like 40-year-old British women because it's just J.K. Rowling writing her own jokes in for the characters. Rick nails making teenage Americans sound like teenage Americans.
Truly, and not even an idea of a teenage American, like a a true average, nothing special, just trying to make it through the frickin' day, no matter what curveball gets thrown at you. And I just really connected to that. And then I watched like literally one scene from the movie and I was already like touchy because I'm excited about my take on it. As soon as you feel like your DNA in it, you're like, all bets are off. I'm like, I don't need to watch anyone try Percy. I got it. Give it, I got it. So I watched like a scene from the movie and it was like so sexy. And I was like, okay, enough. and then I just walked into rehearsal.
That is fantastic. It is funny because I was looking at your Wikipedia page with just kind of the run of Broadway shows you did before and after. And the sandwich of Les Mis, The Lightning Thief, Sweeney Todd is fantastic. What a run.
Truly. I know. I'm used to just being hired for like my voice and kind of buttoning up and being all serious and running after a girl and singing real loud. So this was like a breath of fresh air because it felt like it kind of broke a few molds of like leading male archetype. But yes, I go through the whole spectrum.
And when you were first cast, this was for the Off-Broadway revival. It eventually goes on to US tour. It then goes on to Broadway. What was it like to first start Off-Broadway, and then just like what were the differences between each of the different runs? It still kind of seemed like it had that lower budget, make it on our own feel, kind of like Puffs has, which is really fun. Totally. But then it's still like actual on Broadway. So like, what were the differences between the three?
The differences between the three. Well, the order was so abnormal. Our path probably was expected to be Off-Broadway. I mean, any semi-successful Off-Broadway show, Off-Broadway to Broadway, then to tour. You never tour before Broadway. You just don't do it, ever. So when they told us we're taking it on tour, we were like, what the heck? Secretly, I was like, I'm going to take this on tour and I'm going to try to get this to Broadway or to a huge Off-Broadway house when we come back. Like, I didn't go on tour just for fun. I was like on a freaking mission.
Nice.
But the big difference is, so Off-Broadway is like, oh my God, it's so special. It is like the homiest because we were down in like the West Village.
Okay.
So you do your show. It feels like this little living room. It's so unfancy. I can't even tell you. And then everyone who's in the audience are some of the fanciest people in the creative world of New York City. Because like the people who are really clued in on like that groundwork theater are really like the high up creatives in the city. So there was a lot of like people I really respected coming to that.
Oh, cool.
And then like a bunch of like early adoptee fans. So it really feels like kind of like highbrow and lowbrow all at the same time. And then when the show's over, you're in the freaking West Village.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
And we had crazy lines even from the beginning. So you came out, it was chaos, people screaming. We didn't even have security at the theater at first. And then they hired it because like a group of girls ran past me into the theater. I don't even know what they were trying to do. But they just ran into the theater. I'm like, what are you guys doing? So then they had, okay, I'm getting off track.
I love it.
So like Off-Broadway is like really homey, really low stakes, highbrow at the same time. And then you're in the West Village and you're like getting a margarita at a cool chill bar.
Amazing. Which theater in the West Village was it at?
The Lucille Lortel.
Okay. I don't know if I've been there, but sounds fun.
Yeah. A lot of like really great plays, like famous plays have started there. And I think it's like 250 seats. It's crazy. 250 seats.
That's tiny.
So tiny. So it was like so not a big deal, but such a big deal all at the same time. So fun. And then, oh my gosh, it's so hard to like encapsulate this down. And then tour is like these huge. So we went from 250 seats to our opening night on tour was a 3,000 seat theater.
Wow.
So then it feels a little more like a rock concert because the screams are nuts. So you get that. And it kind of feels like Broadway because Broadway feels like that. But you're going around the country. So you never feel at home. Like everyone who works at the theaters they work at the theater, and these shows come in and leave. So they're just kind of like, hey, welcome, kind of, here you go, bye. Why are there all these people standing outside the theater? Bye, hey, a lot of hello, goodbyes. But it's much larger, much more commercial. So the crowds are packed, but it doesn't have that warmth of like Off-Broadway, where it was like really early adoptee fans and highbrow creatives. And then when you get to Broadway, it's big and it's homey, because everyone who works in that theater works for the theater, but you're there to stay.
Yeah.
So they really get to know you. They're so excited that you're there. So you really get bonded with the people who work in the actual theater when you're on Broadway. And then there's just a ton of freaking pressure on Broadway with the, reviews and Tonys, and it's like then your ticket sales are public all of a sudden, which has never been public this entire time. So, it feels like all of a sudden your family issues are broadcast to the world. So it's much more invasive, but there's so many differences for each. But I hope that answers kind of the vibe of it all.
Totally.
But yeah, huge changes and huge lifestyle differences, just being an actor on each one of those steps. And I can't believe I did it all with the same show.
Yeah, that's truly wild. Did that pressure of Broadway get to you, or were you able to kind of just like push it off to the side and just focus on doing the performance and not worrying about all these new things coming to light, such as the ticket sales being public and there being reviews and Tony stuff and blah, blah, blah?
Okay, there's a couple of things at play. I had spent 3 years on Broadway, so I kind of knew how it worked. I was part of a big show, and I love every facet of theater. So those 3 years on Broadway, I'm talking to everyone. I'm talking to marketing, producers. I want to know how it all works. So, Les Mis went through ups and downs, and I kind of knew how that felt. And so then this little show that was never created to be a Broadway show was never created. I always think of it like ships, It's like the treacherous seas of Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
You usually make an aircraft carrier to sail into those types of seas. And I was used to sailing those seas on an aircraft carrier. And then all of a sudden, this beloved boat that you built with your best friends is going out to water, and no one else on the boat has done Broadway before. And I'm like, it's going to get a little choppy. I'm going to remain calm. And so my biggest thing was just trying to keep the heart of the show intact, not try to polish it up too much while we were on Broadway. And also make the performances, the heart of the show, as Broadway quality as I could. So I really freaking buckled down. I was like, I'm going to give these audiences a show. I killed myself over it. Just going 110% every single day. I didn't want anyone to leave that show and be like, Percy was okay. So it was a lot of pressure, and it was all truly fueled by love, because it was kind of protecting this show and this ship that you cared so much about. But a lot of pressure, and you just try to not embarrass yourself. I was like, I'm going to try my hardest for the show not to embarrass itself and for me not to embarrass myself. So, a ton of pressure, but it wasn't the normal, usually a Broadway show, it's written for Broadway. It's written for Tony nominees. It's written for reviews. It's written for 2,000-seat theaters. And so you go in and you go for gold. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's very strategized in that way. And this show, nothing in its DNA was built for a huge commercial run. We were never thinking like that. We were never making it like that. We were just trying to nail a weird ass musical built off this book. So I was definitely earning my paycheck on Broadway. I will tell you that, because I was like trying my darndest to make that boat ride those waves as well as it could.
I think you did a great job.
Thank
I think you nailed it.
I tried.
I definitely didn't leave my viewing thinking, Percy was okay. In retrospect, now it makes a lot of sense. So you were the only person in the cast who had done Broadway stuff. I mean this as a compliment to you, not a dig to the other people, but that does not surprise me. Just based on watching it, it was like, it feels like Percy was a bit of a step above. And that's not a knock on anyone else. I think it's just, you absolutely nailed it.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. As far as some of the stuff in the play specifically, one thing that I thought you did a very good job of was, you were in your mid to late 20s at the time you're doing this role. And obviously Percy is a kid who's supposed to be like 11 or 12 in this play. I think you did a good job of, just like we said with Rick, writing it, talking like a kid without like baby talking, like where it didn't feel like you were stooping down to any sort of level or anything like that. Was that like a conscious decision of how do I keep the essence of Percy without making it feel too much like a caricature, but still make him feel like a teen?
Yeah. What's funny is all that was a result of not affecting myself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was no effort into act young. Well, there's a few physicality things, like just kind of like being new in his body.
Mm-hmm.
But like how I spoke and how I thought, I never thought of it as playing young. I actually thought he was pretty freaking smart. It's funny how we translate, oh, that reads young. That reads really like a preteen or a teen. When in reality, what we're really saying is there was no formality. There was no care for kind of like the way things are supposed to be when we speak to adults or even subconsciously when you're on stage in front of people. Like there is a level of formality, and if you're too casual, then it seems irreverent. And I'm like, that's exactly what I'm going for.
Yeah.
So I never purposely thought young. I mean, that's a lot of my DNA coming out too. I mean, like, that's how I spoke to teachers. That's how I speak to adults now, really. Like, it's really hard for me to be, like, formal and adulty, which doesn't mean not intelligent, well thought out, respectful, I guess, in a way. So I just loved that I could let it rip.
Yeah.
But I never was like, let me go back in time. Let me craft a young kid. I was just like, let me take away this adultness.
I think it makes sense. And I think it makes the play feel fun. It makes it fit with some of the prop decisions and the set decisions. Like it has just like a very non-traditional Broadway vibe, which I think makes it fun. It makes it stand out. And I think it works for the story and the way they are telling the story. And then also the character of Percy. Because, yeah, you don't have the concern of optics of how you come across. And I think it helps the play feel less like a play that is going for Tonys. Same thing if you see a movie. Like, I remember when I saw The Shape of Water, I was like, this movie is just trying to win Oscars. Like, I don't think this movie's trying to tell a story. And I've been in plays where, like, it feels so theatery and everyone talks so theatery. And I don't think that your role as Percy felt like a traditional type of role, which I think made it more interesting. So I think it works. And
that probably affected me naturally more than I'm aware of, like kind of the water I was in, what I was surrounded by, how to make that show work, how to make a Percy make sense in that context has to be what we were talking about, irreverent in that way and kind of messy in that way and informal in that way, and also not playing to like huge commercial likability all the time. Yeah, so I think it was like you kind of grow in the soil that you're planted in, and that show was very specific soil.
So As far as the singing in your role, you had said that, the acting came kind of natural. Was the singing voice that you use, like, I feel like it does match more of the rock sound of the music, using like drums, guitars, stuff like that. Was that something that was a directorial decision? Was that just kind of like one of your more natural singing styles? How did that all come to play?
So I went to a really good music school. Like, I have a music degree in music theater, which is kind of odd. It's usually a bachelor's of fine arts. So I took a ton of music classes, and I came into school really kind of in that Les Mis genre, naturally, just like loud, vibrato, let it rip. And then I worked really hard with my voice teacher dissecting vocal stylings in rock. And since I was in the mindset of an actor, how that has dramatic effect. I always found that so interesting. So it wasn't just putting on this like filter of like, I'm going to sound rock. Everything that I was doing with my voice, I wanted it to have an effect on the audience. I wanted him not to seem like a singer. I wanted him to feel like he was on the brink of losing it. I wanted him to feel like he was half God, that when he gets revved up, it's really exciting. So a lot of those instincts kind of come naturally when you hear the damn songs with like the orchestrations behind you. But my brain really works musically almost more than it does textually. It's kind of both. But yeah, I thought a lot about what feels right for Percy vocally, not just as a character, but the style of the show and the songs, and what does that mean dramatically?
Yeah.
Which is what I always try to come back to. Yes, and it's very different than Les Mis. But a lot of that was like college and kind of like what I'm specialized in.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I remember the first time I saw a play saw a musical where they didn't do like your classic singing. I saw the musical Chess, which I had never heard of. We just got like free tickets to it as part of this thing in my school. You could get like free tickets in college to go to like local theater in Houston. And I saw Chess, and the guy who was playing the lead role was singing. He sounded like he was pulled straight out of an 80s rock band. And I was like, you can do this? I didn't think this was allowed. And it was so captivating. So I love when the singing style feels not as traditional. And again, for a play like this, it totally works. It totally fits.
Oh, it's so fun too. I can't even tell you. Yeah. And it's usually that like style isn't used because it's hard to pull off 8 times a week. So you kind of got to train for it, knowing that you're going into an industry that you're expected to do things 8 times a week. But that was so fun to play with. Oh my God, it's the best.
Did you have to do particular things to keep your throat healthy? Were you drinking throat coat teas or chugging olive oil?
No, it's really just like it's just like a ramp up process. I wish you could hear audio recordings of like me singing Good Kid in rehearsal. It's like running a marathon. You kind of got to have like a training program. So
sure,
you just ramp up. But by the time we got to Broadway, I was running the same race every day for the past year. So I kind of put all the endurance into like kind of how I throttle my way up to what my performances will be, rather than blowing out and then sipping a tea, hoping and praying. But most of my thought kind of goes into thinking of it a little more athletically than witchily with my potions at my dressing room station.
I think it makes sense. You had said that you didn't know anything necessarily about the books before being cast, but something that I always found interesting when people were telling me about the play before this new Disney Plus show had come out, people said, weirdly, the musical is a far more faithful adaptation of the book than the first movie was. And even Rick Riordan has a quote where he had said he didn't necessarily see it, but he approves of it just based on nice things that other people have said about it. Even though you weren't in the fandom, did you feel, especially when people are coming to those 250-seat shows and waiting in lines outside, did you feel kind of like a little bit of importance of we are giving the fans what they want, whereas the movie did not? Was that ever a factor?
Secretly? No.
Okay.
Like, secretly, I didn't have the pressure of like, finally someone's doing Percy right. Mm-hmm. What it felt like was a fandom that bonds together from their kind of divergence from being the star student who is sexy and popular. And how do you find power in your DNA when it's not necessarily celebrated? And when a movie tries to make it all sexy and cool and polished, it's like the fandom doesn't see themselves in anything like that. So it just really felt like I was just meeting a lot of people who I guess saw themselves in us and felt like they could be friends with us, you know, could see themselves on that stage. So it really just felt like kind of like finding your people. And it felt kind of like the fans found their people with our cast and our creative team, which makes sense that in theater you would probably find it because we're usually a little weirder than the TV film world, especially when it's a multi-million-dollar production that's trying to appeal to every single person with a debit card. But there was never this like self-righteous, like, I have done it. I have made Percy. It was just like, of course. Have you read the book? It's so not cool. But that's what makes it cool. So that's what the experience, I feel like, was more like, rather than like an artistic feat.
Cool. I love it. I know fans also in particular, especially people who listen to my podcast, usually high percentage of theater kids, people who love listening to cast recordings. I've heard nothing but good things about the cast recordings. I've not dove into that quite yet. But what was it like recording that? Did you have a fun time? I know there's like bonus songs and stuff. What was the whole cast album recording experience like?
Oh my gosh. So my music brain, I was like such a freaking perfectionist. I was freaking out. It was my first major cast recording, and it was a huge deal. I don't think people understand how big of a feat it was for us to get a cast recording. So I forget what the exact numbers were, but like how much money it took to make that album was like an insanely larger than what it took to make the whole show happen.
Interesting.
And so we had to shop around to be like, does anyone want to spend 6 figures to make us a cast album? And we found this company, Broadway Records, that usually specializes in Broadway shows. And they were like, we'll do it because we think people will buy it.
Cool.
So then all of a sudden we have all these sound engineers and we are in one of the best recording studios in Manhattan, and there's a whole team, and they're like, we spend on average like 2 hours for every 2 minutes of, it was something even larger than that. He's like, for every 30 seconds, it's about 5 hours of us like working. I forget what the actual thing. And so, you know, when you get that opportunity, I took it real serious because I was like, I gotta nail these songs. And we did the whole show in one day, and it was our one day off.
Wow.
So our voices are, you know, you do 8 shows, you have one day off, and then you do it all over again. How about on that one day off, you put it down for all of eternity and do multiple takes? So like, we're all like, just... everyone was just like, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. Like people like being like, can I please do one more take of that part if we have time at the end? Like, but we were holding it together. And Good Kid, it was the first song we freaking did. It was 10 a.m. And I like wasn't nailing it the first 2 times because it was freaking 10 a.m. And I literally had to come to Jesus with myself. I'm like, Chris, just take it section by section and nail it. And that third take, I just went section by section and I nailed it. And at the end, I even have like the audio memo that I took of me in the booth. I was like, most of that take should be used, but it's like walking a tightrope. So a ton of pressure, and my freaking brain sifts through music and vocals really intensely. So everything I'm doing on that mic, I'm like, oh my God, that wasn't good. That could be better. That could be better. But I think all that thought and polish that the entire cast put into that album paid off. But it's like karaokeing for your life, truly.
Yeah.
Truly.
I can only imagine. I mean, I've done one scripted podcast that I produced as opposed to just the ones like this that are more talking, conversational interviews, stuff like that. So I was reading like a script that I had co-wrote where I'm doing, narration stuff. And yeah, you get so in your head. Like anytime you say anything, you're like, I said that weird. Did I pronounce that weird? Have I been pronouncing this word wrong my entire life? For me with podcasting, like I could hear when my tongue would make like click noises and be like, that's going to come through in the audio. I got to retake this line. Yeah, it's a mess. It was something that was supposed to be like maybe 30 minutes of narration and it took me 4 hours to record.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And people in theater, at least me, I went into theater because my brain short circuits on final answers. Like theater is so, you can mess. It's just moving on in the sea of life. You do a show. If a part's bad, it is going down the river. Hopefully no one recorded it. And then all of a sudden you're 2 inches away from a mic with hundreds of thousands of dollars behind it to like sift through what you're about to do. Oh my God, the pressure. My God. But when it came out, it was so exciting that I was like, if this show just gets a cast album, I will feel happy. And little did I know how much was in store. But yeah, it wasn't like kumbaya, like, oh, let's go sing through the show. It was like, holy shit, we got a cast album. We have to nail this. We have to.
Yeah, I mean, cast albums can do a whole lot. Hadestown, like the cast album, is what turned it into what it is now.
Totally.
And that's a ton of pressure if you know what kind of doors nailing a cast album can open.
Hamilton, Evan Hansen. I mean, with the style of shows, it's like the music, for better or for worse, I think it's kind of exciting, but it's just very different than like the Sondheim era, which probably... it's just a different style, but like you can just be messier. If I was recording Company, I could be messier than if I was recording Evan Hansen. There's just a different style musically, and it requires a ton more radio production level clarity to make the style that you're going for hit, which is a ton of pressure. But yeah, I mean, it's the whole reason our show blew up.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a month run with 200 people seeing it every night. So what is that? I don't know. 8 times 4, like about 6,000 people saw it.
Yeah.
And then we were the number one selling album for like a few days. Like, and then millions of people saw the show in their head by listening to that album, which gave us the currency to launch a tour. It's crazy how that works. It's like a whole new world.
Truly. And then even beyond that now, I know there's a bunch of local theaters and high schools doing performances and productions of the Lightning Thief musical. Is that just like a sense of pride or joy to see people, whether that's local or younger people?
Totally.
Like, that's got to be an awesome feeling.
Totally. I mean, it's really who the show was made for. In my head, I always think like theater done really well is for the audience. And then I just think you can do theater, and no matter where you are, what the talent level is, it's like that experience for the cast is really what like my heart freaking goes to shreds about. And it can be in like a high school cafeteria, and I don't care if every single person who goes and sees it is like, that was okay, but the experience the casts are getting across America, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just think about the cast experience and how many schools are doing it. Yeah, artistically, I just get so excited that people can have a theatrical experience like that in their schools. And it also is kind of like the business model, hard contrast. It's like kind of the business model that our show was kind of gunning for, I think, in a little bit. I don't know a ton, but but this part of the process, everyone doing the show in schools and stuff, was all built into kind of the life of the show, not just artistically, but financially, which is so interesting. I never knew kind of that as an option of how to make money with shows. You usually think it's got to be like a sellout, huge run on Broadway, and that's how you make money. But there's like a whole licensing side, where you try to get the show to be accessible and known by as many local community theaters and capable of doing it. I don't know. It's interesting. So that's where my brain goes. I'm just going like, yay, our producers are finally making some of their money back. and I just get excited for all those kids. Because usually if you're doing the school show, it's because you feel like a little left out from every other freaking club at school. And then that the show can kind of celebrate that. It's like, oh my God, that makes me so happy.
Do you think you would ever want to take on like a director or production role to like put on a production of The Lightning Thief?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I did in my college.
Oh, that's amazing.
My music theater program, I went and directed there, which was so freaking cool because it's kind of like where I fell in love with theater. It was a show that was so close to my heart. And it is a hard show to direct.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I mean, 7-person cast with however many roles, right?
Oh my gosh.
So much changing.
So much. It's like, I'm like, gosh, love all the drama teachers that are like, yeah, let's do Lightning Thief next year. It is so hard to direct. But yeah, I have a huge like directing muscle in my brain that I think as I get older, I'll probably use more and more, but I love that stuff. I love it.
And going back to your old school, that's got to be the best. It's like the theater kid version of getting your jersey retired in the rafters. You know, you get to come back and direct. It's incredible.
It was incredible. It was so cool. And you can like do it your way. Like, yeah, it was so cool that it was in that setting that I got to take a stab at it. Really, really freaking cool.
That's fun. Okay, I have a couple very specific questions just about the play itself, and then we'll let you go. First, the part where you're on the toilet in the Supreme Lord of the Bathroom where you like sneakily roll the toilet on. Was that tough to nail? Just the specifics of like, I will maneuver this toilet skateboard. I'm like, all these memories, I'm like, now that I'm getting further from when they were made, I'm like, they're blurry. I think there's a funny story of how that happened. I think the toilet was on the wrong side of the rehearsal room once during a run. And so I just like scooted the toilet while talking because I was late. And they were like, oh, brilliant. We're keeping that. So like, there's no reason for the toilet to start stage left and be pedaled over with me sitting on it across the entire stage. There's no reason for that. And I think it was a mistake. And they're like, it's brilliant, which our director, Stephen Brackett, was so good at that. He always had an eye out for any kind of mistake or something that we were like doing because we thought it was stupid. And he's like, that's it. And we were like, no. I'm like, Stephen, you want me to pedal the toilet while being like, okay, just stay here. And it was hard to like know when to stop. Like, well, it's dark too when you're doing it. Like most of the
dark.
Lights are off.
Yeah, that totally was a mistake that got kept into the show. Totally.
Amazing. Do you remember any other mistakes that turned into things in the show, or is that just like the main one that sticks out?
I was like playing on the monkey bars once. I had my hands above my head and I had my back against it. And I was like lifting my legs up. Just like doing like weird crunches, I guess. I was just, like, playing. Yeah. I was just like playing around. And Brackett's like, that's the shoes. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, that's the shoes. And Off-Broadway, a modified version of the shoes taking off and pulling me into the pit was that. And then people would come behind me and push me while I was still... So it was, he always had like an eye on that.
He seems to also have an eye for things that make your life harder and then say, no, it's really good. We got to keep it now.
Totally. Or not even harder, like embarrassing at first. You're always like, no, Brackett, no. And he's like, I told you to be careful what you do on the breaks because I will put it into the show. And you're like, oh my God. But yeah, mistakes that got into the show now. Yeah, that's the only one that I think I could really think of as like an actual hiccup. Everything else is like, we were messing around and the Brackett's like, that's it. And we're like, you must be joking. Like the dolphin that wheels Poseidon out. Because Sarah Beth would wheel Poseidon out on this big staircase and we would have to lock the wheels of it. And it was really loud. And it kind of like messed up the moment of, I don't know, Percy meeting his dad.
Right. Big emotional beat.
Big emotional beat. So Brackett was ruthless. Brackett's like, can you just like lock it and then do a dolphin call and then just run off the stage, or like dolphin off the stage? And Sarah Beth was like, you're joking, right? He's like, just try it. And so she just the most janky, like psh, this whole staircase smacking down because it was locked in place. And she would go and go off stage. And oh my God, the first preview, I was like, what if people don't laugh? We're doing so much crazy shit. Like, what if people just think we're crazy and this isn't even funny? And like, literally that part like would get applause sometimes. Like, just the lack of rules in a way. I was just like, so it made me so scared. I was like, Brackett, I'm so scared before first preview. And then people just were with us, and it's been history ever since.
Yeah. I mean,
oh my gosh.
You can really tell the crowd, at least the recording I watched, the crowd was super into it for something that, things like that might not seem as big of a deal. You know, you have the Supreme Lord of the Bathroom scene with the toilet paper shooting out. And then when you defeat Ares in the fight, you have leaf blower toilet paper guns. And it was like standing ovation level applause from the crowd when you do it. And if you don't have that context of it being a callback and all that kind of stuff, you're like, that's kind of weird. But like, it's earned. The crowd loved it.
Yeah. There's so much like, it's a specific style that Brackett's really good at. How do you make it seem off the cuff, but there's kind of like structure, like exactly what you're talking about. If there wasn't a callback to the first time those leaf blowers, it would have been too much information at once. Yeah. And it's really creating an environment where you root, not just for the characters, but you root for the actors and you root for the production to pull this off.
Yes. No, I totally agree. Especially when you have so many people playing so many different roles, when you have props that are clearly like there's a lot of thought in them. Yes, they may not be expensive props, but like it's still tough to do the Dodds transition and the Minotaur fight. You know, it's not the freaking plant from Little Shop of Horrors, but it still takes a lot of work to make those things appear and disappear and not look hokey, even though they look like they're made with more simple materials. At least for me, as someone who had like done theater, done improv, watching the show, I recognize like how challenging a lot of the things that you complete are. And I think that the crowd recognizes it too. And that's why you get standing ovation for leaf blower toilet paper gun.
Yeah. And yeah, it seems so, you know, sections can seem so simple and we would just drill it. Like the amount of times I figured out like the sword reveal, how to make it really feel like it's got like a click. It was hard to make it a click rather than kind of like a soupy reveal. And we would work with like the lighting a lot. Yeah. So it's almost like more of the special effects falls into the hands of the actors' stagecraft, which we freaking love. We were like so excited to like be looking in the mirror and how do we make this freaking wing really look terrifying? Like Stokes was like the left wing of Mrs. Dodds and cared deeply about how that left wing looked. Yeah, but a ton of stagecraft, which is so exciting to use that muscle and build that muscle and have high standards for that muscle, even though you could easily write it off as this part is stupid and silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so fun to be like, well, we can make it really good and stupid all at once.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. That's what you love to see. You love to see it. Now, I know people do this on movie sets. I don't know if it's as much of a thing with Broadway, whether that is taking home parts of the set or parts of the costume. Do you have the shirt? Do you wear the shirt? Do you have anything else from set?
I don't have the shirt. I have the shoes and I have...
For the folks at home, Chris has gotten up to get something.
One day I'm going to frame it. I got to give the audio. I have it taped up. The crew guys on Broadway cut out the part of our floor that I slid in on every night.
Oh, the opening slide is so cool.
The opening slide, and you can see where it's worn down from my freaking knee. I have it rolled up. But one day I think I'll get it framed or something.
That's so cool.
And just call it Percy's knee or something. But it was like, a full year of just one after another after another. Mm-hmm. So that's like my favorite thing I have. But the crew guys, because we were closing and they were like ripping it up. And I'm like, my little knee. Like, I did this every day. Look at my little knee. Like, that was always so fun sliding in. I was a mess. And then they surprised me at the bar after they handed it to me. I was like, oh my God, thank you.
It's so sweet.
And then I stole the shoes, but no. The shirt's probably being used in some production. I swear to God, they're like, didn't throw away anything. So no, didn't keep the shirt. It was all like Off-Broadway. All that stuff was like my windbreaker was from Uniqlo. Like my shirt was like American Eagle, and then it went out of stock. So they had to they were like freaking out. And so they had to like make a custom shirt. It's just so funny how like semi-iconic an American Eagle blue gradient shirt became.
Yeah, I mean, it was something I obviously had seen like photos and stuff of the production, but then when the TV show was coming out, I saw a lot of fan art where it would be like Logan Lerman's Percy and then your Percy like putting their hands on the shoulder of Walker's Percy, and everyone always nailed the shirt. I was like, okay, the shirt has become like a thing. Because at first when I saw it, I was like, yeah, it's a black and blue shirt. Okay, but no, it's like the shirt. Like people are nailing exactly the locations of the stripe.
The gradient shirt. Yes, exactly. It's so freaking funny. Yeah. But no, that's all I kept. My apartment's not big enough to keep too much.
Valid. Nope. That is New York. Every time I get a gift from someone, I pray that it's small.
Yeah. Yes.
It has to be small. Oh, man. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining. This was absolutely delightful. It was so fun to learn about everything and get that little behind the scenes peek. Is there anything you want to shout out to the folks for people to check out? Anything that you've got going on, either ongoing or upcoming?
A lot of little things in the works. If you don't see me for a little bit, don't think I'm just sitting at home. There's a lot of really cool new musicals in the work in New York City that I'm getting my hands on and trying to make just as lit and weird and specific and needed as The Lightning Thief, but maybe just a little more grown up this time. I'm like excited to see what I can do in my like Chameleon Stage. And then I'll leave Charizard for like when I'm 40 or something. But
yeah, then when you enter your grumpy era.
Yeah, my grumpy era. So right now I'm just kind of bopping around a lot of new developmental stuff, which is some really cool stuff is being built, artistically exciting. Yeah, that's all I would say. And when I come out of the woodwork, I'll see you out there. I'm excited.
Yeah, super fun. Well, we'll keep tabs open and eyes and ears open to see what lies ahead. But Chris, thank you so much for joining. And listeners, thank you for listening. Yeah, no problem. And until we cross paths again, you and I, listener, you and I, Chris, whatever happens in the future, until anything takes place, I'll pursue you later.
Best of luck out there.
Now, wasn't that a fun interview with a fun person? Thanks again to Chris for coming on the show, and thanks to you for listening to the mid-roll break, even though it's towards the end of the episode. Welcome to the Lightning Brief. Just want to do some quick updates, and then we'll get into the outro credits and ASMR mic. But I want to thank everyone who watched the stream of the North Carolina show. If you watched that live or after the fact, I very much appreciate it. And if you missed it, you're like, oh no, I forgot. Oh no, it's not there anymore. I'm going to get a version up on the merch store where you can go to the merch store and then download it. And then I'll also see for anyone who did buy a stream ticket if I can also send you a link to where you can also have a downloaded version, because it would feel bad if I put a downloadable version on the merch store and I was like, haha, you bought it too early. You can't have it forever. I don't want to do what Taylor Swift did with the renting thing, and now it's on Disney Plus and stuff. And I don't want to anger the Swifties, but I do think that was a little unfair of Taylor. $20 for only a 48-hour rental over Christmas? Ridiculous. Anyway, I want to thank everyone who did watch that or who will get it in the future. And I want to thank everyone who is supporting the show on Patreon. Speaking of the Patreon and that live stream, I'm going to make a bonus episode for the month of March where I'm going to answer all of the questions that people sent in for the Q&A portion that I couldn't get to. Since we did have like 250 something people watching the stream, we had a lot of people send in questions for the Q&A portion. So my bonus episode for March is just going to be me going through all of those. So you can get access to that if you join the Super God tier, patron tier, and above over at thenewsolympian.com/Patreon. But I want to thank the folks who have joined the Patreon most recently. So shout out to our new Super God tier patron, Warrior of the Mind. Shout out to our new Super God tier patrons, Adrienne Bader, Emma George, and Yasmarie Melendez. And shout out to our newest Demigod tier patrons, Hollow, Sterling Coleman, Samantha, Prakya Schmitz, TC, and Bria. Yes, that's Bria with 4 E's. Thank you all so much for your support. May Demeter bless you that when you are going through the produce section of the grocery store, you know exactly where stuff is and you're not pacing over and over again trying to find that one particular type of pepper you need for the recipe. Also, speaking of the Patreon, I have something in the works with Robert from the Damn Meme page where we'll be doing another patron-only stream event towards the end of March. We're going to do something where we take the script from the Lightning Thief movie and we're going to go over the parts that didn't actually make it. You can apparently just like look at the first draft of the movie's script online, and there's certain things that were in that first draft that didn't make it to screen. So Robert knows about them and I don't. So we'll have a live reaction thing where I can see what was so bad that it didn't even make the cut for the bad movie. So that'll be towards the end of the month. Make sure you're following News Olympian on Twitter and Instagram at News Olympian so you will get updates about that. But that'll be an all TNO patron thing, the $5 tier and above. And as always, if you want to know what we've got going on ahead with the show, you can go to thenewsolympian.com/about. You also may have seen this on social media, but we've got 3 more episodes about the musical. The next 2 will be breaking down the musical, kind of like a normal TNO episode. The first act will be covering it with Morgan Danielle, aka Imagine Matrix, and then Act 2 will be covering with Ashley Latimer, who ran the social media accounts for the Lightning Thief musical. So we get a little behind the scenes and a discussion of Act 2. And then the final episode will be with Joe Trace, who wrote the book for the musical, and then also he wrote 2 episodes and was on the writing team of the TV show. So we talk a little bit about that as well. And then once those episodes are complete, it's Heroes of Olympus time, baby. Good stuff all around. So excited to get to that. Now, if you are looking for a podcast to listen to in between weeks, you're all caught up on the News Olympian and you need something else, well, you are in luck because I make a whole bunch of podcasts and I think that they're very good and I think you would enjoy them. One that I think is very fun is Horse. Horse is a comedic basketball podcast that I co-host with my buddy Adam Mamawala. We talk about the NBA, we talk about the WNBA, and we break down everything. We remove all sorts of gatekeeping. And an episode that we are about to release is a Q&A episode. Every quarter or so, we do an NB Q&A episode where we just answer any sort of questions that you have. We are getting ready to record that, so you can fill out the form right now. We tweeted it out and posted it on our Instagram and stuff like that. But you can ask a question as simple as, I'm so sorry, but what's a rebound? Or as complex as, why does this specific player have beef with this specific player? Why is Russell Westbrook calling Kevin Durant a cupcake? Things like that. So we'll do a fun Q&A episode there. That's a great way to like get in at the ground floor of like, what's going on with basketball for the podcast. But if you want to listen to all the episodes, you can search for Horse wherever you get your podcasts, or you can go to horsehoops.com. Now, before we wrap up here, unless you're listening on Patreon where you get ad-free episodes, we're going to take a break for some sponsors. They make me doing this as a full-time job possible. Some of the ads will be read by me and others of them won't be. The ones that aren't read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in Brazil, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Portuguese. And if you hear any ads that are by some strange sponsors that don't feel like they're a good fit, just shoot me an email to thenewsolympian@gmail.com and let me know what city you were in when you downloaded the episode. And then I can make sure to get those reported. Had some interesting stuff happen. We switched ad partners and we got better at blocking some things, but then some other stuff is coming through. But just shoot me an email and I'll always get that squashed. But now you hear some ads, and then when we come back from the ads, you'll hear the credits and the outro and ASMR Mike, and that will be all for this episode. Hello, Hello! Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you can't get enough of the show, you can find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and we're on Reddit as well, reddit.com/r/The Newest Olympian. And if you really can't get enough of the show, you can check out the bonus content for the podcast at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. There's a bunch of bonus content. You can get exclusive merchandise, lots of fun stuff there. And if you want other merchandise, you can go to our merch store, thenewestolympian.com/merch. I mentioned the Patreon, so let's give a shout out to our producer level patrons: Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steve Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Hoskovchova, Veronica Bartova, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Polly Burridge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Sam Reeby, Riley Kiddes, Mary Kelly, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, CC Reeds 23, Sandkoff, Julia Kendall, Ricky, John Drielsma, Rayla Matthews, Riley Draken, Luna Kadoon, Sky Mallory, Persasabeth, Aiden Parziani, Biggest Tyson Fan, Hunter Landstrom, Captain Jack Rackham, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction Coming Up, Ginger Spurs Boy, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Lux, Neil, Olivia Krenicki, Mrs. O'Leary is Best Doggo, Bradimus Prime, Keepo Guy, McKenna Finley, Skylar Sisters, Demigod Nurse, Zachary Hamilton, Scott Sheldon, Sophie, Natanya Page, and M. Thayer Cohen, and Finlay McLeod. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, just talk about the podcast, whether that is posting about it on social media or reaching out to someone that you think would like the show, or just leaving us a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you are using. All of those things help. Spreading the show's existence via word of mouth is essential for the podcast, so I'm very appreciative to anyone who has done that in the past or will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned in to this episode, and I hope you tune in to our next episode, where we will be joined by Morgan Danielle to break down the first act of the Percy Jackson Lightning Thief musical. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So for this ASMR Mike segment, I'm just going to take something that's here in the Shubio and make some noises with it. It is a massage gun. We've got one of those massage guns for like if you're got sore muscles and stuff, and we recently decided we don't have enough room where we normally keep this, so it's getting banished to the Shubio. So here we are. I'm going to just do some stuff. Here's me unzipping the case. And I'm going to take it out. I'm going to put in one of the attachment heads. And then I will turn it on near the microphone. This is it on the lowest speed. Let's try increasing it. That's 2 out of 5. 3 out of 5. 4 out of 5. 5 out of 5. And off. Thank you for listening.